Welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS in partnership with Vertical Magazine. In this two-part series, Ronnie Reese and I sit down with Nelson Reithmaier, the Chief of Maintenance for Pasco County Mosquito Control in Florida. During the conversation, we explore Nelson's extensive background in aviation, particularly in his time in the Coast Guard, where he worked as an aviation maintenance technician. The discussion delves into the challenges of maintaining aircraft in corrosive environments and the training and selection process for Coast Guard aviation. We get an opportunity to discuss the unique considerations and challenges that come with Nelson's current role as the Aviation Chief of Maintenance for Pasco County in Florida. Nelson shares his insights on the operational strategies employed during hurricanes, the importance of maintaining aircraft for public health missions, and the technology used in mosquito eradication. The discussion also highlights community engagement efforts and the significance of networking through conferences like the upcoming Vertical MRO Conference and regional fly-ins.
Special thanks to our sponsors for this podcast: Rotorcraft Support Inc., Metro Aviation, Robinson Helicopter Company.
Welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS.
All right, everyone, you're ready to contact. You're cleared to the Bravo.
The Vertical MRO Podcast explores the fascinating world of helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul with your host, Val Medved.
Now, line altimeter 3029, approved as requested.
The podcast features helicopter technicians, mechanics, engineers, and MRO experts who share invaluable industry insight, knowledge, and stories that will inspire current and aspiring industry maintainers.
Outside of the mosquito control, are you guys actively involved in firefighting missions or any other missions, or are you guys solely dedicated to the mosquito control?
So we are solely dedicated to mosquito control. We have, we've talked amongst ourselves and how cool would it be to have a Bambi bucket set up, and and then I'm over there going, what about a rescue hoist? Yeah. And none of that's come to fruition. We focus primarily on our public health mission of combating the mosquitoes and providing a better quality of life for the residents here.
Speaking of the community, I know I saw on LinkedIn you recently attended a local community of other mosquito control aviation operators. Can you talk about some of the aircraft that they flew and some of the things you guys talked about at that conference?
That was awesome. So Lee County, which is the Fort Myers area, about 3 hours south of us, they host a fly-in every year where they'll have a bunch of speakers talking about aviation-related mosquito control and aviation related to that. And like this year, they brought in some really good speakers from Airbus talking about doing, say, auto rotations. So where my pilots operate at, they're very low. They're typically not very fast. It was a good discussion for them. As far as like maintenance, there was some good discussion about maintenance software for us, and then going into applications for the mosquito control. That was awesome. And then got to go out on the ramp, and Lee County has 2 converted DC-3s with the turboprops on them. I was geeking out over that. Had some Bell 206s, a 407. Lee County also has 6 H-125s that they use for mosquito control. King Air. So it was just awesome seeing all these aircraft come in. Charlotte County, I believe, had a MD 500 that they brought in, and just geeking out over all those aircraft.
It's always crazy to me when you think about these different segments within the helicopter community that are doing these special missions. There's a whole ecosystem surrounding what you're talking about just with mosquito control. It's a big deal in a lot of areas. It's always mind-blowing to me to consider how many resources are being dedicated from an aviation standpoint to the eradication or control of these populations. But I want to change gears a bit and talk about conferences and fly-ins, because I feel like from a career progression standpoint and from an agency standpoint, it's really important to participate in fly-ins fly-ins are great. You get to know the folks that operate within your local community, have conversations that are really important to have that you may not be able to have on an air-to-air frequency. Or so I think when it comes to a hurricane's a good example. You're preparing for something, or you're trying to solve a problem. It's nice to have a Rolodex of folks that are nearby that you can call and be like, hey, do you have this particular thing, or can you help me out here? I love fly-ins for that reason. Just the conversations that it creates. But on the larger scale, when it comes to conferences, I feel like the education, the networking, and training that takes place at those is really important. Vertical believes in that as well. So we've taken the step to create the Vertical MRO Conference this year. And I think about the conferences, and a lot of times you go to Verticon's a good example. You feel like the maintenance community is an afterthought in a lot of ways when you go to these conferences. So it's really cool. The conference that we've developed, it's for the MRO community. It's definitely shining a light in looking for best practice training type situation that's going to positively impact our community. So sorry for the shameless plug, but I really think it's important. I love that Vertical's taken the step to kind of fill that need. Have you seen any of the Vertical MRO literature information that's going around, Nelson? Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
I have heard plug for it a little bit. I haven't really had a whole lot of time to explore it. But no, I do agree with you that, it's an excellent opportunity to be able to meet with your peers and talk about these things. And that was a huge thing that I got out of going down to Lee County, was just talking with their maintenance guys and sending emails back and forth with them, trying to, find out, what they had done for their aircraft. And like, oh, okay, you're getting these from this source, or you did this, and it's really cut down on some of the maintenance issues you've had. And there are some things that I'm definitely going to be implementing. And then also what I've found is, especially after stepping into this role, was just reaching out to other departments around here. I've got Pinellas County Sheriff just south of us, and they've got some H-125s, and their lead tech there, Brian, he's been a huge help for me. Hey, Brian, I don't know what I'm doing with this. Can you help me out? Or I don't have this tool. Can I borrow yours? Same thing with Hillsborough County Sheriff. I go over there and talk to Brian and Jason, and they're willing to drop whatever they're doing to talk to me about an issue that I might have, and try to reciprocate that as much as I can. Still reach out to some guys that I know that are working HEMS still, Hector, and hey, Hector, I need this. I know you've got it. Could I borrow it for a little bit, type thing.
So at the conference, for the listeners, you can go to verticalmro.com and take a look. The first conference is October 7th through 9th in Kelowna in Canada. And the next one is November 10th through 12th in Irving Convention Center in the DFW area. And I know, John, that there's some special rates for students, right? And Nelson,
Yes.
I know you spent quite a bit of time as an instructor, probably still do a little bit of side instructing to some folks. Can you talk about what your life was like as an instructor, and maybe what some of the challenges there are bringing people into this industry at this point?
Oh, that's a great question. I really enjoyed instructing. The school that I taught at National Aviation Academy, they broke down the A&P program to 6 different terms. Each one was 10 weeks. So the first 10 weeks you spent in general, And then you came to a term that I taught for the longest, which was recip engines. And we would finish up general there, spend about 2 weeks with that, doing corrosion, fluid lines and fittings, ground handling. And then we would jump right into recip engines and teaching them about the different cycles and different systems. And it was definitely, feeding them with a fire hose.
Yeah.
That we were giving them so much information. It was a great opportunity because a lot of those students that are coming in, they don't have that mechanical background. You're lucky if a lot of them have used a screwdriver in the past, or know what a combination wrench is. And so you're getting them, and then the first 8 days of starting power plant, we would have them tearing apart a Lycoming engine. And, we would just keep reiterating all the different points, the different parts of the engine. So when you have air come in and fuel come in, what happens? And, how does it, what are the different strokes? And, you would just constantly be, going over all of that with them as they're tearing down these engines. And, it'd take a little while, but they would start getting it, and, which was great to see. They would, they're finally, their eyes light up and like, oh, I finally get this.
Yeah.
And, then you're just keep pushing them on down the line, and, here's more information. Here's more information. You got to get your certificates. It was really, really cool. For us, it was 7 hours a day, just between lecture, doing your projects, and just working with these students. And sometimes you have to get down nitty gritty and just one-on-one. What aren't you getting here? What's not making sense? Hey, if I explain it this way, is this going to help make sense? You just keep on going, and a lot of times it might take a little bit, but they get it and then keep moving on. And one of the subjects that they would always struggle with would be pressure carburetors. And it's like, well, we haven't really used pressure carburetors since the 1940s, but the FAA still wants you to know that. And, how does differential air pressure and and the fuel metering, and how does all that work? And I tell them, okay, well, you're never going to be taking one of these apart, most likely, but if you can understand the process of how this all works, then that may help you with troubleshooting another system down the line. Just being able to understand the interactions of the air, of the liquids, and all that. That it was really fun.
I think that's one of the interesting topics that will be discussed at the conferences, is that you've seen it throughout your career, right? The move towards digitalization, and especially the new folks coming in, they expect everything on their phones, easily diagnosed for you ahead of time, and so forth. And yet the training that you're providing is back to really the nuts and bolts, right? The basic physics and chemistry of why does this do exactly what it does.
And you know what? Having the physical, engines in front of you, tearing them apart, I think that is so much more important, because, hey, you've got your intake valve here. Once it opens, you can follow how that air is going to get into the cylinder and whatnot. Yeah, you can watch an animation, but it's a lot of fun when might have a cutaway engine and can show them that. Rotate the prop. Okay, as it comes around, you got your intake valve opens, your pistons coming up, all that stuff. It really, really, really good stuff there.
Yeah, people learn in so many different ways, but I know for me, being able to physically touch something and smell the smells associated with that, it really it changes my ability to learn. So I feel like what you're talking about hands-on training on a
Mhm.
live physical thing is really important. The cool that they're still doing that. One thing you brought up that I think is interesting, and it kind of is along the lines of what Ronnie's talking about. We live in a consumer culture where if something's broken, you typically throw it away and buy a new one. You're typically not taking it apart, trying to troubleshoot what the issue is and fixing it. So I think that's creating a situation where a lot of kids grow up with very little mechanical aptitude. So you take those kids who've not been exposed to any of that as they've grown up, and now they're like, oh, I'm interested in becoming an AMP, and then they find themselves in a school and they're like, holy cow, like you said, drinking from a fire hose. How do you engage those folks in a way that, when we talk about recruitment, that's one of the big challenges we have is how do we reach out to these young folks and recruit them and draw them into our industry?
That is definitely a challenge. Don't know the best answer for that. We had like a community engagement person at the school, and she would go into the local high schools and try to talk to, say, the automotive students, or do an auto shop or whatever it might be. And I think there was some success there, but engaging in a whole, the youth and trying to get them into aviation, it's going to be kind of tough moving forward. Now there are, like, I'd get students that would come in and they wanted to do helicopters but had no background, and that's something that I find is kind of difficult for our industry. Is you got to have the secret handshake. You've got to have that secret decoder ring to get into helicopters, because a lot of outfits are like mine, where it's just a single or maybe two mechanics, and they want you to be on the ball from the get-go. You have to be able to manage the maintenance. You have to be able to have the soft skills to work with the pilots, and also be able to have some enough of a background and experience to be able to maintain the aircraft. So how do you do that? They want me to have experience to get the job, but I can't get a job to get the experience type thing. And that was one of the topics that was brought up at that fly-in that we just went to, was internships. So that's something that I would want to try to bring on board here, at the district, is maybe going into our next off period to or downtime, to maybe bring in an AMP student from a local technical college, and have them work with me for a couple months to try to get that experience.
Yeah, you talk about being a good steward of tax revenue, and you think about what it costs to bring another AMP on board. I think it's efficient for someone like yourself to look at how do we bring someone in to give me a hand to make me more efficient in the things that I can do, but also training the next generation. I think that's a great solution for a lot of folks, because you find yourselves by yourself often. I'd imagine it'd be nice just to have another set of hands to help you with some of the tasks that they would learn from doing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability, so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
Yeah, and I get a lot of help from my pilots. Brian, he's our newer pilot. He's always coming down to give me a hand. Yesterday, we were pulling blade pins for the 3-month inspection on those, and he was holding up the blade for me as I was pulling the blade pins. So I do get a lot of great help from them, but it just also would be nice to be able to bring someone in, like I said, that's trying to get into aviation maintenance and wants that experience, and to be able to learn that secret handshake.
Right. Ronnie, you've been in the industry for quite a while. Any insight from you as far as recruitment goes and things that you've seen that have or maybe haven't worked?
Because of the secret handshake, as Nelson said, right? That most helicopter operations are smaller operations. You don't have enough money to be paying a guy just to be sweeping the floors, right? And nobody wants that guy to be sweeping the floors. So from what Nelson is talking about is partnering with these local schools, trying to find internship and co-op opportunities to make yourself hireable for those first things. It's a win-win on both sides, and you're seeing it now. I think VIH up in Canada, I think that they're partnering with a local tech school and so forth. These are the things that we need to continue to see, because coming out of the military, there's just not as many people coming out of the military with this experience either, or they're going into the super secret spy world of commercial aviation, right? The big stuff, right? So as much as we're super secret spies on the maintenance side for helicopters and the secret handshake, there's bigger fields out there. And so what makes it sexy? It's because you get to work on helicopters.
Yeah.
And give them that experience early.
You bring up the airlines. The airlines they're taking pilots, they're taking maintainers, pillaging kind of the helicopter industry for a lot of reasons. But I think of the helicopter industry and the things that it allows you to do. The troubleshooting that goes into an entire aircraft, as opposed to going to an airlines and you're in charge of, like you said at the Air Force, turning the screw to the right, and then the next person comes in and does the next thing. I really think looking at the totality of what the helicopter industry has to offer is got to be so much more fulfilling. Any insight there, Nelson, from your perspective?
Kind of like what we were talking about before. One of the things that really keeps drawing me to all this is the fact that I've been helping others. From being in the Coast Guard to teaching, and now on the mosquito control side, that public health aspect of it, that we are preventing disease, we're giving people making their lives more comfortable. That's just been huge for me. And I didn't realize that starting out, but looking back on my career, I'm like, oh yeah, there is a common theme to this. Working for the HEMS, same thing. The fact that I was providing an airworthy aircraft that they were going to go out and either transport a patient from hospital to hospital or do a scene call where they're picking up someone that was involved in a really bad accident, getting to them to the hospital that much quicker was probably going to save their life.
Yeah.
It's very rewarding to me.
And finding the new folks coming in, co-ops, internships, obviously throughout your career, and you talked about it, you have to have special certifications or special requirements on individual aircraft and so forth. Can you talk about maybe some of the other specialized training that you've had to take for your current career, or other things that you focused on in your training that you did with students, vibration analysis and so forth?
Yeah, sure. In the Coast Guard, they were always looking to send you out for what they called sea school. So, I was able to do what we used then for vibration and balancing, which was rotor tune. Got to go do that, spend a week doing that. I got to go to another school for advanced structures. I got to go to another school for corrosion control. Had a lot of great time with that. And then after getting out, going to the Airbus school for the field maintenance on the aircraft here. Did just recently got my IA. I went to a 1 week program with a local class here so that I could get that, which, I really had a great time at that, learned a lot. Definitely keep learning. And another thing that or resource that I've been using has been the on the FAST website for the FAA. So their maintenance training that they have there. They have the pilot side, the wings program, and then they've got the maintenance ones, and a lot of great information on that. And those are broken down where it's mostly hour trainings. You can just watch a video and take a test, and so much information on there.
You talked about, well, we've talked a lot about your Coast Guard experience, but you just brought up some of the training that you received in the Coast Guard. And it makes me think of all the folks that are currently in the military and are looking at some point, maybe in the near future, to transition to the civilian world. There's a lot of things you can do to prepare yourself for that transition. But when you think back on the things that were available to you, and maybe things that that are available now, what advice would you have for someone who's getting ready to make that move from the military to civilian world and wants to stay in helicopter maintenance?
Big thing is just go ahead and get your tickets, go to the FAA, get your 8610 signed, and go to a 2-week program or whatever it might be to go ahead and get your A&P, and leverage what you've learned. The military, I think, has a program called COOL, I believe is what the acronym is, and you can test for free through the military. So you use all of those resources. Just get it done. I waited until I got out of the Coast Guard to get my A&P. It is what it is. I wish I had gotten it earlier.
Yeah,
it is my big thing. Anything that you can do, any sort of training that they'll offer, take it. Don't turn anything down.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking back over the course of your career in the military, you talked about one of the impactful missions, or maybe a deployment, if you want to call it that, is the Turks and Caicos. To me, that would be a really impactful one because I want to go on vacation there. So if I can vacation where I work, that's great. But when you think back over the other deployments you may have been a part of, anything that sticks out as impactful that you got to do?
One of the ones that I talk about quite a bit is I was stationed in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, so very northeast corner of North Carolina, and I was on duty, and we got call that there was a capsized sailboat out by Bermuda. Bermuda's 700 miles from Elizabeth City.
Wow.
We dropped on the H-60, we have 3 auxiliary tanks, 220-gallon tanks on the left side, 180-gallon tank on the right side. So we dropped the 80-gallon tank, and we put another 120-gallon tank on there to maximize our fuel. So we were up to about 950 gallons. Just max bag, took off out of there in the middle of the night. And as we're flying along, I'm going, well, I hope we got the nose pointed in the right direction. But we had C-130 flying cover for us for the radio coverage and everything. And, we landed. By the time we landed, we were actually bagged out. And the C-130 had another crew on board that took the helicopter after we refueled it. And they went out and saved 2 people out in like 30-foot waves. And, I would have loved to have done the hoisting on that. But it was just, we were, had hit our mission time by then. That was one. And then probably one of my first SAR cases that I went on, it was a Navy sailor that had actually got knocked around in some really bad seas and busted up her face. So we went out to the destroyer and to medevac her, and we landed on the back of a destroyer and got her into the stretcher and took her back to the hospital, making a positive impact once again on someone's life there.
Yeah.
Who knows how long it would have been taken for the ship to get into shore to whereas we were able to do it very quickly.
The skill of the air crews in the Coast Guard and the Navy are amazing. You think about the seas, you're talking about 30-foot seas, and it's never full visibility and a bright sunny day. It's usually, it seems like low clouds, low visibility, high winds, high seas, all these environments that you guys are flying in to affect these missions that are literally saving people's lives. I think it's always inspiring to hear those stories. So really cool that you got to be a part of those. But the next piece that I always like to ask is, I know most folks in the military are younger in age, and there's a bit of downtime. I'd imagine that that comes about as a result of being a young person in the military. When you think back on that free time you had, I'm sure there's some shenanigans, some pranks that took place. Anything that stands out that you can remember?
Yeah, there's always some shenanigans, and the fun ones are, just you get a visiting aircraft and tagging their aircraft and
Oh
whatnot.
yeah.
That's always a good time. I remember when I made passed my check ride for flight mechanic, and as we're taxiing in, I see everyone's starting to gather up on the ramp, and I'm like, I'm not playing this game. So the pilots are shutting down, and I'm locking the cabin door and everything, and they come running over. They pop the window out, drag me out, and I'm in my dry suit, so they unzip my dry suit and pouring 5 gallons worth of ice into my dry suit and zip me up, and all that good stuff. Putting petrolatum in my ears and my hair.
That's great. A rite of passage, in a celebratory
not hazing.
way. No. Rite of passage. But that stuff's great. I love all those stories. That's the kind of stuff I miss. You brought up tagging aircraft, and that's one of my favorite pastimes. I'll never forget flying into LAPD's facility, an annual called a disaster preparedness drill. So we fly in there. Agencies from across Southern California fly in. They have, gosh, I forget the number of arrivals and departures they have in one day, but I want to say it's somewhere around 200. Always aircraft moving, landing, dropping off controllers, dropping off air crews. They go inside, network a bit, and then come back out and depart. Well, the risk of flying in there is that all the LAPD ground personnel that are at their facility are going to tag your aircraft the moment you shut down, or the moment you land. So when you come back out to your aircraft after your networking time, your job is to find the sticker that was tagged on your aircraft in that short amount of time. So I think the first time I flew as a PIC into their facility, land, shut down, go inside, and come back out, and I walked around my aircraft for probably 30 minutes looking for a sticker. I didn't find anything. I'm like, I know there's one here, but I can't find it, so we got to go back. So we fire up. I get in touch with the tower to get clearance to depart back to our facility. And the first thing after I make contact with the tower, the controller goes, "You missed it." And I'm like, "Oh, he's telling me I missed a sticker somewhere." So we fly back to our place at Cable Airport in Southern California, shut down, and I spend probably another hour and a half looking for a sticker, which to this day I'm sure didn't exist. But it was like the double joke was that I spent another hour and a half looking for it once I got back. So those kind of things are fun. I love it. When you guys tagged aircraft, was it with paint, with stickers? What did you guys do?
It could be either or. One of the ones that worked really well is Coast Guard aircraft are painted with a lot of international orange. So we had a stencil, and we would take a can of international orange, and we'd spray paint the stencil on there. And as you're walking around, you're not going to see it, but after a couple washes, it starts. You could tell the difference. It just starts, coming in different shade than the rest of the aircraft. And oh, those bastards, they got us.
That's great. Ronnie, any experiences in your time seeing funny tags or anything like that at shows or anywhere else in your travels?
Not so much on mine. Usually it's the funny stickers on the toolbox are the ones I like. Some of them are not as PC as you would think nowadays.
That's funny. Yeah, those are the kind of things that I love talking about. It makes our community, what it is, fun to be a part of. And I think that community aspect of what we talk about is so important. The opposite side of recruitment is retention. And I think people stay in our community for a lot of those things. The mission mindset you described, the fun that we have, just it's something that I don't think you find in a lot of places. That's part of the reason I love what we do. Again, going back to you, Nelson, over the course of your career and looking forward, what do you think some of the headwinds we face, outside of recruitment, some of the challenges that we're either dealing with now or that are up and coming?
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
Oh, goodness. I'm kind of interested to see how things play out with the tariffs. Being a smaller operator, and being, government with fixed budget, and that could definitely be an issue for us. I got the email from Airbus the other day saying that they were going to start, putting on a surcharge for everything. And I'm like, what's this going to do for me going forward? And so we'll see how that goes. And then, even on our side, it's, while there's a lot of people that really understand what our mission is here and everything, you still get that subset that don't think that it's appropriate to have helicopters treating for mosquitoes, or maybe they think it's too expensive, or so that's another issue that we face on our end is that. So but as an industry as a whole, really the biggest thing is going to be the recruitment of new mechanics, new pilots to be able to affect every mission that we need to do.
Yeah, for sure. Ronnie, how about from your perspective?
I think he's talking about a big topic for these smaller operators, right? The pressure of you have one mechanic and maybe 2 pilots to go out there and do your work. It is a government-funded local community taxpayer, a prudent use of taxpayer dollars, and you have a lot of pressure happening around that aspect. So, as operators are looking at what kind of programs do I need to enroll in from the OEMs to maintain or control my costs, whether or not those are PBH programs, which can be expensive, but also the aspect of if you're with the supply chain challenges that we've had, if you don't want to pay, how do you get the parts? If you can pay, how can you make sure you get the parts fast, right? Mosquito control, I think is kind of the role that Nelson and the Pasco County and Lee County and all these other ones play are kind of unsung heroes from a public safety and health perspective, right? Nobody really knows how bad it could be without the mosquitoes, without their help, right? So how to maintain control of costs and make it a sustainable industry is something that all operators are really dealing with right now.
Yeah. You think about the mosquito-borne illnesses and medical costs and what it would cost for an influx of those mosquito-borne illnesses to hit one county in particular hard, that wind up at a county hospital that's funded by taxpayer money. I think if you're not spending money on a program like what Nelson's doing, you're going to spend the money on the opposite side, on the healthcare side, and I think the prevention of those diseases is much more important than trying to reactively treat those diseases that could kill people and ultimately impact their life in a really negative way. So I agree. I think the education piece, that's really important. So love what you guys are doing there. Again, I can only imagine that the pterodactyls would be flying around without your guys' intervention. I know we're getting short on time. So the last question I'll ask for you, Nelson, is, advice for aspiring AMPs, folks that are, wanting to come into the industry. What advice would you give to them looking back over the course of your own career?
Once again, just take any sort of resource that you can get, any sort of training, go ahead and take it. And then also, be proactive about things. If it's a slow day, Don't just sit there on your phone. Grab a broom, you start sweeping, grab some paint and paint chalks, like my friend Roy would always say, but do something, because then, that'll be seen, and they will, your management, your supervisors, they will want to spend the money on you, because they see that, you want to be there, you want to do something, and you offer up that you want to learn. They will send you to that training, so that you get further knowledge, further engagement, and you'll definitely be very successful doing that.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Being a part of a small community, your name precedes you in a lot of ways, and if you don't give your full effort, that reputation is going to follow you anywhere you go. So as you move through your career, it might be difficult to go to a position that you really wanted to go to because you didn't make the effort to shine in those situations where, you're always being watched. And I think it's not fun to think of, but I think it's important to remember as you progress through your career. Always give 110%. I love that mindset. Ronnie, for you, what advice would you have for folks that are currently, wanting to make their way into the industry?
Yeah, I think the main thing is like Nelson said, is being proactive. He was talking about, logging onto the FAST website. There's YouTubes, there's podcasts, the educational opportunities are out there waiting for you, right? It's no longer waiting for you to go out and do your own work. They're waiting for you and looking forward. So take advantage of all these educational opportunities are out there at no cost or very low cost. These conferences that are being held now is where to go, right? Be proactive in your life and you'll succeed.
Yeah. Again, on the topic of conferences, I'll just close out with, the Vertical MRO Conference is going to be a game changer, in my opinion. If you're interested in going to progress your career, get some education, get some training, and network with folks, that's the place to be. There's we're looking at having the vendors that are available. I think we're going to ask them to wear tags that says I'm hiring if they're in a position where they're looking for somebody. So, if you're looking to make a move somewhere, it might be a good opportunity for you guys to go and look for a new place to work if you're wanting to grow or change employment. So lots of benefits there. Looking forward to seeing everybody in Kelowna and then later in Irving, Texas. But Nelson, it's been an honor to sit down and talk with you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for what you're currently doing now, because again, without your intervention, it would be a much different environment down in Florida. So until we meet in person and can have a frosty cold beverage, I will say cheers and see you later.
Thank you very much.
Stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com. Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
Thank you for joining us for this enlightening 2-part series on the Vertical MRO Podcast, proudly presented by Vertical HeliCASTS and in partnership with Vertical Magazine. During this 2-part series, we've had the pleasure of exploring the impressive journey of Nelson Reithmaier the Chief of Maintenance for Pasco County Mosquito Control in Florida. From his foundational experiences as an aviation maintenance technician in the Coast Guard to his current pivotal role, Nelson shared critical insights into the unique challenges of maintaining aircraft in demanding environments. We've heard about the innovative strategies deployed during hurricane operations, the vital role of aviation and public health missions, and the advanced technology aiding in mosquito eradication. This discussion on community engagement and the importance of networking at events like the Vertical MRO Conferences reminds us that collaboration is key to advancing our industry. Stay tuned for our next episodes where we continue to bring you more fascinating conversations and insights from the MRO community. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please like, subscribe, and share the Vertical MRO Podcast. Thank you for listening. We look forward to connecting with you next time on the Vertical MRO Podcast.